Hi, everyone. Welcome to our live chat with Mr. Joel Denton. We're going to take just a couple of minutes as you're coming in. But, I feel like you're filing into a room right now. It always takes about 3 or 4 minutes for everybody to kind of get in and get situated. So while you're doing that, those of you that are here a little bit early, go ahead and just open up another web browser and start looking for the educational resources at Music for All. You're going to find all of our materials. This is episode 6 or 7. 6. Yeah, 6. This is episode 6 for us. And you're going to find great stuff, including, the initial phases of auditioning for a drum major, some conflict management and communication skills with Taylor Watts. You're going to find some great conducting materials with Koji Mori. You're going to also find some great questions that were being answered around that time too. I'm not sure if you can have access to the questions as well or not, but just lots of great information. With that being said about the questions, you're going to find at the bottom of your screen, there's a Q&A section that's there. Now, if you notice, those of you who've been joining us a few times, our Wando drum majors aren't quite here with us yet. They're actually helping me finish our Wando drum major auditions. We just got off the call with that. And they're finishing up the session to lead us into our true auditions, which are Friday. So I'm sure they're getting a lot of questions there. They're going to be joining us as this goes through, okay? So just, we will have questions available to you probably about 20 minutes in, and I'll even stop and make sure that you can do that. Next week, we'll be on again at 4 o'clock, and that one will be a little bit more kind of catching up. You've been given a lot of information over the past few weeks. I'd like to go back and kind of put it all together into a, so now what kind of idea. We've heard great ideas, but we've got to put some into place. And even with conducting, we've got to do that same thing too. So I'm really looking forward to being with you again next week at 4 o'clock Eastern time. So as more and more of you are coming in, each time I look down, it's like, okay, here's another 20 or 30 people that are coming in. One of the last things that I would have you do is to just check out any of the stuff at Music for All. They have plenty of videos, not just about drum majoring, but a lot of stuff about like the fall and some of the opportunities that hopefully will be back to us next fall. Isn't that the question on everybody's mind right now? What's next fall going to look like? And I wish I had a crystal ball and could tell you, because I would sleep a lot better if I could. I actually talked to Mr. Denton this morning, and I mean, he's who I call when I don't know the answer. And I was like, man, I'm in a rough place right now. I'm nervous. I'm scared. So it's not just you as students, it's us as adults too. And in good Joel Denton fashion, he has some great thoughts that we're going to share as we go throughout this webcast. But welcome. Thank you for being with us, and welcome to Mr. Denton. For those of you who don't know, Joel Denton was the director of bands at Ooltewah High School in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Is it really Chattanooga? It's a suburb of Chattanooga, isn't it?
Suburb, yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's outside Chattanooga. Graduate of the University of Tennessee, go Vols. Completed graduate studies at UT Chattanooga. He has this great bio, and he was like, don't read all that. I'll tell you what I know about Joel Denton. Number one, his band's always played great. Always. I happened to be at the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade in 2007 and again in 2013. And Joel's Ooltewah band was there at that time too, and it was incredible. Those kids couldn't have been more excited or more invested in the performance. And that's one of the things that I would tell you that I always admired about Joel. After that, they sounded good. When you saw his kids, they were just on fire to perform. And that's something that I always want to have. And it's the thing that, trophies, all that other stuff go away. But that excitement and those memories and that fire that you create, that lasts a lifetime. At least it does for me. That's what I remember most about my performances. His bands have performed at the Tournament of Roses. They performed in the Disney Parade in Orlando. They were the first band to perform at the ABC Thanksgiving Day Parade in the Magic Kingdom. If you got to watch any of those Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parades, they often would have the Ooltewah band in a prime location because they always did something just outside the box. I remember one year they were dressed up as clowns, I believe, Mr. Denton, and even their shows were like that. He talked last time to band directors about being who you are, not trying to be somebody bigger or somebody louder. Be who you are. And he did some great things with those bands. Now he was at Ultiwa for 37 years. Since then, he's retired 2 years ago, and now travels all over the country, like in Indiana, Texas, South Carolina, all over the place, doing leadership sessions with students all over. And I can always tell after Joel has been to a place because the kids love band more than they did before. And if anybody ever says that about me, I'll know that I've achieved my goal in life, because that's the secret, isn't it? You know, trying to love music and band more. It's incredible. Maybe his most impressive accomplishment is being married for,
yes,
at least it's for me, for being married. I think it's 35 years now, Joel. Is that correct?
36 now.
36, right on.
Yeah.
You got to update your bio, buddy.
Yeah.
It's 36 years to Carrie, and they have two adult children, Alex and Caroline. And we talked last time, Alex is actually an assistant band director in Chattanooga. So this guy lives, breathes, sleeps, exudes band, and more importantly, the love for music and band and the people associated. I'm so excited to have Mr. Joel Denton with us today. So welcome, Joel. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Bobby. I'm so honored to be with you guys. And listen, everything Bobby said about me, I think about him. You guys are so fortunate to get to interact with him every week. And if you need a model of a person who is a leader, look at Bobby, because Bobby leads. He leads the same way with his children and his family and his band program that he's teaching you to lead with your band. And the key there is this: leadership is not something we just do in band. It's something it's a tool that we can use in life. The skills you're going to learn being drum major are not just skills for this season, or if you're a drum major for a couple of seasons, they're skills for life. I mean, well, I think about my past drum majors, and one of the ones that I remember most, her name is Candace. She is an attorney in Nashville now. She was the first Whittle Scholar at the University of Tennessee. Amazing student, amazing young lady, but she's still leading. She created a leadership training for attorneys to help them be more ethical and more personal about the way they lead. And so I want to encourage you to realize that you're not learning skills for band, you're learning skills for life. And so let me tell you a little dumb joke to start with, though. I'm an old guy. I like dumb jokes. Okay, so we're talking about leadership. So this Secret Service agent had worked his way up. He was a young guy, and he finally got assigned to President Donald Trump's security detail. And so they were out going through some business one day. And as the president came out of the building, this young Secret Service agent saw someone running towards him. And he was so nervous because he'd never seen anything like this before. And he yelled at the top of his voice, "Mickey Mouse!" And it startled everybody. And they started looking around. And they saw the guy, and they got the guy. And his supervisory agent came over to him and said, "Hey, listen, that was great that you saw that man running towards the president, but why did you yell Mickey Mouse?" He said, "Sir, I'm so sorry. I got so nervous about seeing someone running towards President Trump that I meant to yell Donald Duck." I know it's corny. I know it's corny, but life should be about making us laugh and making us have fun. And so I wanted to make sure I got your attention at least here in the beginning. So let me talk to you about a couple of things. Bobby kind of mentioned this. I like to use word analogies. And so as a drum major, you're always going to be there and you're always going to be in front of the band. But you have the opportunity to do a couple of things in that regard. As leaders, we do too. I know there's leaders on here. So I want you to think for just a minute about what the difference is in being in attendance and being present. What's the difference in being in attendance and being present? Both of those people are there, but one of those people are active. That person's actively engaged. They're invested in what's going on. They're not just there filling a spot. And you know, as a drum major, as a leader, it's really easy for us sometimes to get focused or to begin focusing on our position and not on what the position entails in the way that we interact with the people we're leading. We need to be present in the moment. We need to be actively engaged with the people we're leading. We need to know, they need to know that we are there for them and they are not there for us. Being a leader has nothing to do with the title or the position. Those things are just attachments or badges. Being a leader has to do with inspiring other people to do the things that they need to do and to do things they may not think they're capable of. The other words I'd like for you to think about are involved and committed. Involved and committed. And it's easy for us to be involved in things. We know who those people are. They show up, they're usually on time, they go through the motions of doing whatever they're supposed to do, but there's no concerted effort on their part to really invest themselves in what's going on. And so I want to challenge you not to just be involved as the leader of the band, to be a committed leader. So what does committed look like? I like this analogy. If you had breakfast, if you're in the South, you probably had this for breakfast. If you had breakfast this morning, you may have had eggs and bacon. And there were two animals that participated in that breakfast. Well, one was involved and one was committed. And so, you know, the chicken kind of poops out a couple of eggs and goes on about its business, and we have eggs. But the pig has to be committed. They gave their all so you could have breakfast. I'm not saying you need to be pigs for your band, but what I am saying is that you have to realize that you're there to give yourself to the service of others. They're not there to serve you. Leaders serve the people they're leading. And we can do that from the front, the middle, or the rear. We don't always have to be in the limelight. As a matter of fact, I know there's people that are not drum majors on here. I encourage you at times when you're leading your sectional, whether it's in fundamentals or it's in musical sectional or a concert band sectional, to ask someone else to lead and you join the group and be the model inside the ensemble. So they see you doing what you're asking them to do. See, we should never ask someone to do something that we're not willing to do ourselves and that we can't do ourselves. And modeling for me, Bobby knows this, is a huge part of leadership. As a matter of fact, I think I taught my students, I called it model leadership, being a model. And I want to share with you what that stands for. A model stands for this, and I think effective leaders have to have these characteristics. I like acronyms too. You'll learn that. M stands for motivate, and motivate is inspiration. Motivate is inspiration. As a matter of fact, someone said this. John Quincy Adams, he said, if your actions inspire others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, you're a leader. That's a president that was writing 200 years ago. Think about that. It's still true today. If we can inspire people to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, then we're leaders. So we need to be able to motivate people. Well, it's an interesting thing about motivation. Motivation requires that we have a relationship with people, because they have to know, again, that we're there for them and they're not there for us. The O stands for observation. And some people say, well, exactly what does that mean? It goes again to the relational part of being a leader. If we're going to observe people and we're going to inspire people, we have to know people. And that means that you know your peers, your bandmates, your colleagues. You know when they're hurting. You know when they need to be encouraged. You know when they maybe have just broken up with their boyfriend or girlfriend. You know when their parents are having problems. You know when they're having problems with their parents. You know when they failed an important test. You know when they're just struggling. And you are there to help them, but you're also there to get them help. And this is really important. In our society today, sometimes we're afraid. We don't want to be the person who tells on other people or shares information about other people. But a leader is committed to the people they're leading. They're invested in the people they're leading. And it's a million times better to tell someone like your director or another staff person or a guidance counselor that someone is struggling and they get help than it is to live with the fact that you knew they needed help and you didn't get them help and they should hurt themselves or something happened to them. And so observation is so important in leadership. To this degree, coming out of what we're going through right now, a lot of people in places they're not accustomed to being. We're spending a lot of time away from each other. We're not having that relational involvement that we normally have. We don't have that physical touch that we all need. We're missing all those things. And lots of people are hurting. And this is a great opportunity, guys, for you, even before the season starts, to start reaching out to your peers and encouraging them and supporting them. And I know you still talk to them or you still hear about them. You know the people that are hurting. Let me tell you, it costs really nothing to send a handwritten note to someone, but it's physical. It's something they can keep. It shows you really care. It's very personal. It's unlike a text or a Snapchat or an Instagram or an email. It's because it has that physical nature to itself. They can go back to it time and time again. I would really encourage you to do things like that. Figure out a way. Just call them sometime and take 5 minutes and talk to them. These are not people you talk to every day. These are people in your sections or people in the band, you know, who need that support and that encouragement. So let me encourage you to do that. That's a form of observation, being aware that our colleagues, our peers, need us not just to lead them, but to support them in leading them. The D, yes.
I'm actually before you leave that, because I've been thinking about this a good bit since you've talked to me about it. It's so good. One of the things we talk about is being aware of others. I think for many of the students watching this, they can do that easily with friends and maybe even with acquaintances. But let's pretend I don't know somebody in my section, or maybe it's an 8th grader coming up. Should I still reach out, or what are the best ways to do that if maybe I don't know or have that kind of relationship with somebody?
I think the first thing is probably in that situation is a phone call. And they can probably get their numbers from you or the other directors and introduce yourself. We're probably going to miss, in lots of situations this season, we're going to miss some early maybe freshman or rookie camps. We're going to miss some early summer get-togethers. Those may not happen, or they may not happen the way they've happened in the past. And so you guys can make sure that those students who are moving up from the 8th grade to the 9th grade have someone ready to meet them that's excited about them coming to join the band, that's going to be there for them, to help them, to reassure them that they're afraid and they feel like they're going to be even more behind, but you're going to be there to help them. And then even the people like Bobby said that you don't know very well, reaching out to them just to remind them that they're important to the band and that the band is there for them. And while we're not together in the band room, we're still thinking about each other. We're still supporting and encouraging each other. Remember, and I know Bobby talks to you guys about this a lot. Leadership is we talk so much about what it is and how to do it, but the most important thing in being a leader is why we lead. Why do we lead? We lead because we recognize that we have the skills to not just inspire others, but to encourage them, support them, and help them. And that, again, goes to the fact that those skills are skills we can use for the rest of our lives. They're not just related to band. So look for opportunities and ways to encourage your peers to stay involved and make sure they know that you are thinking about them and others are thinking about them. You know, Dr. Tim Lutzenheiser says a leader does what needs to be done when it needs to be done, whether he or she wants to do it without anyone asking. I always add to that, without anyone seeing. And a great leader gets other people to join them in doing it. And so you have opportunities right now to reach out to people and encourage them and support them. And you have opportunities to get your colleagues that are your friends, that you talk to a lot, to join you in doing that. Imagine if you were an 8th grader looking to move up to the Wando band and you've been working for 3 years. Maybe you've had an older brother or sister, and it's even been longer than that. And you've been anticipating joining the Wando band or your band, wherever you are. And you've had all this excitement to do it, and now this has happened. And now there's so many unknowns. And let me tell you guys, the greatest struggle for people your age in our society is social anxiety. And social anxiety is the fear of not fitting in, the fear of failure. And everything you can do to support your peers, to encourage them, to let them know you're not going to let them fail. You want them to come be a part of the band. You know, I always tell this story. I had these twin sisters. We were getting ready to go to the Macy's parade in 2013. And their older sister was, I think she was a couple of years older than them. And they were 8th graders. They were great girls. And they wanted to do the parade with us. We let some 8th graders do it because you can only do Macy's every 5 years if you get lucky. And so they would never have that opportunity again in their lives. So we invited the better 8th graders to participate. Well, these girls struggled with finding pulse. And people joined them and supported them. They came to me, they wanted to quit. I encouraged them to stay with the band. The leadership students worked with them, encouraged them. We would call their names out, you know. Hey, we just started saying the sisters because they knew who it was. Hey, sisters, you're out of phase, or hey, sisters, you're dress the line, well, they struggled through that fall. They were great in the parade. By November, they were great. But here's the best part of the story. Their freshman year, we never call their name. Their sophomore year, we never call their name. They actually joined the leadership team. Their junior year, both of them were co-section leaders on horn and trombone. I mean, these are really talented young ladies. One's in pre-med now, or pre-pharmacy. The other one's doing something. Really great young ladies. And they would have quit had their peers not really rescued them. They made sure they came to their aid. And so that's where observation is so important. Bob, you want to jump in?
Well, what I was going to say is I think that some of you may be thinking, well, I don't feel that great right now myself. How can I reach out to help somebody else? It's therapy for you too.
Yes.
As you reach out and encourage folks, you feel great about that. There's a little bit of selfishness, I'm not going to lie, to like around the holidays when people give at doors and they give some money. I have to tell you, after I give, I feel pretty good about that. So I'm being a little selfish. I love that feeling of, wow, I actually influenced somebody and I helped somebody. So if you feel like I don't feel that great myself, just be honest and tell them that. Like right today, I don't feel great about any of it. But just being able to say that and know that there are hundreds of you that feel the same way and want to do better, man, that makes me feel so much better about this. So it helps you. It's a cycle of just building trust and building relationship. So Joel, you said, I don't want to mess up your model. So we've done motivate, observe, and know the peers. Go on to the D.
Okay, so let me go back to that just one second though, and just add to what Bobby said is just think about when your cup is full and you feel really great about what's going on. If you don't empty your cup some, you never get to refill it. So you never get the joy of refilling your cup. And the same thing is true if I want to be cautious because I'm a person of faith, but when we empty ourselves, it gives us the opportunity for other people then to pour into us. And so as you pour into them and you don't feel great and they don't feel great, understand that gives them the opportunity.
Uh-oh.
The phone jumped in. Am I back?
Okay. Yep, you're good. You're
okay.
We lost you. It gives them the opportunity to.
It gives them the opportunity to pour back into you, and what a great thing, because that encourages them. You pour into them, and then they in reverse pour back into you, and now both of you feel better because
right.
You've both given and received. Roger Staub II says this. This is kind of goes right along with this. Leadership is high touch. It's grounded in the 4 chambers of a leader's heart. And those 4 chambers are intimacy, integrity, passion, and competence. And so you have the ability to invest in people. That's where the intimacy is, investing in others. And as you do that, you demonstrate your integrity to them. And your passion for them and for what we're doing in band. And that's a great thing. And then the competence thing is where we start with letter D, and that's demonstrate. Mm-hmm. And demonstrate doesn't mean demonstrate that I can play my horn well, or I can conduct the band well, or I can march well. Demonstrate means I can be a leader 24/7. And so you're doing that when you contact them and you reach out to them, you're demonstrating that you are a leader, that you're someone who cares about them. You're showing them the kind of people you want in your band program and the kind of person you want to be. You're saying to them, this is what we're about. I'm going to say this because I know Bobby so well. Bobby teaches students music. Bobby doesn't teach music to students. And you might say, well, Joel, what's the difference in that? The difference is by teaching students music, the student's the most important thing in his room. The music is the vehicle that he uses to motivate the students and help them to learn. And in band, as a leader, the band is the most important thing. The band, the students. There is no band without the students. You have no one to conduct if the students aren't there. Invest in them, and then the music will motivate them to be the kind of people we want them to be, because we get to use the music to help them grow emotionally, intellectually, and relationally. And so I just really encourage you to do that. Demonstrate is important, though. When we are in band, we want to demonstrate what a good band member looks like. We want to demonstrate that we rehearse and we're prepared to play and all those things. The E stands, this is the first one that is really about band, is evaluate and equip. But again, you can use this in every area of your life moving forward. It's the ability, you know what the expectation is. So you need to be able to look at that expectation, see if they're meeting it, and if they're not, be able to tell them how to do it better. Now, understand, we don't make people better by making them worse. And so we want to make sure that we are sensitive about how we provide evaluation and equipping or instruction as peer teachers. And as a leader, you're going to be a peer teacher or a peer model for your bandmates. And so therefore, you want to be cautious what you say and how you say it, what you do and how you do it. Remember, there's three things that we can never recover in life. This is really important as you go forward in life. You can never recover time. Once spent, it's gone. You can never recover words. Once said, they can never be unsaid, unheard. Once actions, you can never recover what's done. You can apologize, but you can't undo what you did. In other words, we have to be really cautious about what we say and do, because if we don't get it right the first time, we can apologize for that, but we can't ever go back and undo what we said or did. So we'll be really cautious. Choose your words wisely. A good way to make sure you do that, and this is Zoom is a lecture thing. If we were in live room together, I could do some things shorter with you. But my friend Freddie Martin, the DCI Hall of Famer, says try to say things in 6 or 7 words or less. That way you don't say too much that you might regret. So if someone is out, they're in the marching, they're ahead of the form, don't say, hey, you're ahead of the form, and yeah. Just say, look at why they may be and say, hey, I think your step size is too big, and go back and do it again. Or if they're behind, hey, I think your initiation's too slow. Or if their articulation is muddy, hey, less tongue, more air. Let's speed up the air, get the tongue out of the way. Give them little tidbits so you don't have to later apologize for something you said. A really good way to think of this, and these are the 10 rules or guidelines for leadership and personal success, is to praise in public and criticize in private. And so when you do need to provide instruction for an individual, if you can get them to come, drum majors, get them to come to the podium and tell them instead of yelling it across the band. Or if you're a section leader, as you go back to your spot in marching band, go by them and tell them, give them a little piece of advice in that evaluate and equip, then that's going to be better for them. Remember, being kind doesn't cost anything. It doesn't cost anything to be kind. Always choose to be kind in all situations. And then the L in model stands for lead. It's the product of motivating, observing, demonstrating, evaluating, and equipping. And then the people will be ready to let us lead them. If any of those things are missing, we're going to have a hard time getting people to follow us, because they're going to think that we're more focused on ourselves and less focused on them. Okay?
I think it's one of the things that, when you talk about that evaluate and equip, we have a couple of things that we do. We talk about, trying to help somebody, SOS, simple, keep it very simple. And we go through kind of a whole process with that. Organized, like just give them one point at a time. Don't try to give them the whole time. Just fix this one thing. Try to make this one thing better. But the last part of that, and the most important one, and you've heard me say this a bunch of times, is sincere.
Yes.
I think sometimes we start to get angry at the mistake, which in turn causes us to show anger or frustration toward the person. And I think all of us have to admit that when somebody kind of digs at us a little bit, that doesn't make us want to do what they wanted even more. I use the example of, I can remember my parents nagging me to clean my room. After about the third or fourth time, I wasn't like, oh, you know what? You're right. I think I'll go clean my room now. It was very begrudgingly done. So I think you have to really flip the thing of that. What do I ultimately want? I want this person to enjoy what they're doing and to be good at it. Mm-hmm. That helps all of us. And when you look at it that way, it will color the way that you do this. The other way the more practical way is, think about your grandparent or favorite aunt or uncle or favorite teacher, and think about how they corrected you. We all have hopefully at least one person in our life that has done corrections and made us feel better. I've had several teachers, and even my parents as I was growing up, like they would go after me pretty hard, but I actually felt better after it was done with some of them. And that's kind of what you want to do. I've seen some of our best leaders, our best student leaders are the ones who can we have one right now. We have a couple of section leaders right now who are great at this. I can hear them say, hey, we need to do this. And everybody just says, okay, because they trust them. And there's respect there, and there's relationship. All of that had to come from relationship, and they know that those kids are very sincere in what they want. They're not trying to be mean. They want the best for the people in their section. So that evaluate and equip is really important. I think that's one of the things that where we cause drama is when that piece goes wrong. When we get too wrapped up on the what we're doing as opposed to the who and the why. So, which leads us actually into our next thing really well. You know, Mr. Denton has a great series of talks about success and significance. And this is really where we're talking about it, because I've seen some successful groups for a time not worry about how they're engaging students or others, and not worry about the relationship part. And you know what? They can be successful for a short time, and then it usually catches up to them. But then I think Mr. Denton's going to talk to you about what those differences are. So, Mr. Denton.
Yeah, so I love that, Bobby. I want you to think for just a minute. If we were together, I could go around the room and pick some of you out and ask you this question. But I want you to think, when you joined your band, wherever your band is, I know we've got people from all over. When you joined your band, I want you to think of the person who inspired you, who encouraged you, who made you want to be in band. I can still think back to that. And guys, for me, that's, high school band 45 years ago almost. And I can still think back to that person who did that. I want you to think of that person. Now I want to ask you, did you think of that person's position or title in the band, or did you think of that person? See, people don't remember positions and titles unless they don't like the person. You may be a great conductor, an amazing drum major, but if your band despises you, they're not going to remember you 20 years from now. They're just going to remember that drum major that they didn't like very well, that they wished had not been their drum major, or that band captain, or that section leader. But if you are a invested leader in their lives, then they're going to remember you, because people remember people. They don't remember titles and positions. They remember the people, and they don't remember what you did or how you did it. They remember how you made them feel while you were doing it. They will remember if you really were there for them, or if you thought they were there for you. For me, and I know that Mr. Rush talks about this in some of his books. Dr. Tim talks about it a lot. For me, it's working to be significant in people's lives. It's moving beyond. Success is what you get. Significance is what you do for others, how you help them become successful. I'll tell you a little story. I don't want to go too long, but I'll tell you a little story. So in the Civil War, there was a Maine school teacher. His name was Joshua Chamberlain. And he and 1,000 men from Maine joined the Union Army. And he got promoted to colonel. And they got to the Battle of Gettysburg. And he was put on the far left end of the battle, 80,000 Union troops. And his men, by the time they got to Gettysburg, I think there were about 300 men left to fight in under his command. And they gave him the far left end. If you've ever been to Gettysburg, you know that's called Little Round Top. It was the highest place on the battlefield. And it was the most important because it was on the end and because it was the highest. You could see the entire battlefield from Little Round Top. And if the Confederate forces broke Little Round Top, then they could attack from both sides of the Union and they would win the battle. And he was charged with, at all cost, do not surrender, do not retreat. You cannot lose this position. And the Confederates charged 4 times on this day. And on the 4th time they charged, he got shot. It hit him square center right in his belt buckle. And he realized he wasn't injured, and he got up and fought through. And they were able to hold. They had held for 4 times. And his brother, who was with him, and another one of the officers came to him and said, we're out of ammunition. He said, well, get it, take it off of the injured and the dead. And so they held a 5th time. And as the Confederates retreated that 5th time, someone came to him to tell him that there were no reserves coming, that the line had broken in another area and they'd had to send them there. And he had to hold Little Round Top. He had 80 men, and they were out of ammunition. His officers told him, we're out, we can't hold again. And the Confederates were getting more reserves. And they looked down the hill and they saw the Confederates were charging. And his officers said, what do you want us to do? And he said, fix bayonets and charge. And as he said it, he jumped over the wall and started running down the hill. And his 80 men ran behind him into sure what you would think would be defeat. But the Confederates thought if they were charging them, that they must have had reserves. And so the Confederates started retreating. And in the end of that skirmish, about 5 minutes in, Joshua Chamberlain had his blade on the collarbone of the Union captain. And his 80 men captured over 400 Confederate soldiers because he had made a decision. His action inspired him to act. His purpose inspired him to act. It's called the butterfly effect. You guys have heard about that. Historians now say that one action secured the Battle of Gettysburg for the Union. Most historians say that if the Confederacy had won the Battle of Gettysburg, they would have won the war and we would be multiple countries now. Most historians say that the United States would look like Europe instead of being one nation. And think about that. That means that in World War II, when Japan and Germany were attacking from both sides in the East and in the West, there wouldn't have been a country like the United States who could come into that battle and win on both fronts. Think about all the things that we do in the world to support other nations. There wouldn't be a nation able to do that now. One man's actions caused that to happen. It was a purpose. He had been given a purpose and he acted to see that through. Understand that as a leader, your actions have consequences. There's a butterfly effect. And what you do affects others. It affects your friends. It affects the band. It affects your family. It affects everyone that is connected with your band program. And so you have to be purposeful and thoughtful and sincere, as Bobby said, about what you do and when you do it and how you do it. It's so important that you're always thinking about the consequences. We don't make people better by making them worse. We don't inspire people by pushing them down. It's better to lift and to pull than to push. Most of the time when you push someone, they want to push back or they fall down. But when you're lifting them, that shows humility on your part. You're saying, I've got you. When you're pulling them, that says, come on, I'm not going to let you fail. I'm going to pull you through here. And that's your role as drum major or officer in the band, or just as a great band member. is to be that kind of person, that kind of model for your peers that says, I'm not going to let you fail. And my purpose is to be here for you to help you succeed.
Isn't that so interesting? I think when I looked at being a drum major in high school, I don't know that I would have put that together. It would have been, I'm supposed to lead us musically. I'm the face of the band. I'm this and that and the other. True. However, the real point of great student leaders, drum majors, section leaders, band captains, whatever the title, the real purpose of leadership is people. And if you can just start there, a lot of decisions make themselves. That, you know, what's going to be best for this other person. What's tough is when we have like that drama stuff come up. What's tough when we have, well, the relationship was already strained and now it's even more so. See, if we all just start on a level playing field, it could actually be okay. But for many of you, you've known this person since kindergarten. And I can tell you, one of the things that I do, and I'll say this before I keep going on, because we're going to get into questions here in just a second. If you have some questions, I know that Gavin's sitting there and he's going to kind of roll through some of the ones that you want that we can present to Joel here. So if you have some, go ahead and start formulating those and writing them now in the question section. But what I wanted to say was, for me, it was a person named Katie Anthony. And I think now, actually every year, I reach out to her. She's a grandmother now, but I think of her as a senior in high school. When I was in 7th grade, she came over and introduced herself to me that very first day of band camp. I was scared out of my mind. She introduced me to people. It was awesome. It was just something where that one interaction was great. Now the bigger one was at lunch. You go into lunch, we had lunch and there were only enough places for the people that were there. There weren't a lot of spaces open. So I walked out. I was the last person to the lunch line as the 7th grader in the group. Didn't think there was anywhere to sit. So I was going to go hide. I was going to go sit in the stairwell. And from the back left corner of the cafeteria, she stands up and says, "Hey, Bobby, I've got a place for you right here." I can see her standing there and doing that just as clearly as I can see people on the computer screen right now. That one moment, that one action set me on a pathway that I still follow. Gang, that was like 1989, I think. And she didn't think about what's the benefit for me, Katie. She just said, this is the right thing to do for somebody. And she did that. On the other side, I've had students who were bullies. I've had people treat me badly. Nobody knows usually this part. I quit band in 9th grade for about 2 months because of this bully. And I couldn't stand him, couldn't deal with him. And I talk about that, but the real person that I count as the villain of that story was my section leader who did nothing about it. I went to him about the bully and I in tears, this little 9th grade kid saying, "I can't do this anymore. I need your help." And he said, "Oh, you know him. That's just how he shows you he likes you, by treating you badly." No, that's not okay at all. The bully, I can almost forgive. The person who stood by and did nothing. And we do this exercise where I ask people to think about the Katies in their band. Mm-hmm. Like, who was that person that made you want to be there and feel welcome? Now, who is that other person? Who's that bully? Who's the person that's made you want to quit? It could be a staff member. Could be. But now think about those people who walked by and left it alone and didn't do anything. And now think about this 3 years from now, when we get to have these sessions again or these camps or whatever we get to have, and I have them close their eyes, you're going to come up in their mind. You will. It. Which category? Mm-hmm. Are you Katie, the bully, or the standing by person? And that's huge. We've got to, it's big. It's way bigger than band. If this were just about band, I don't know that I would get this passionate about it, quite honestly. It's a big deal, and I love music, but I love leaders of all types. Quiet, powerful, vocal. I love it. With all that being said, we've got a couple of people that had a couple of questions, like So, Mr. Denton, this one is for you. How do you alleviate drama and tension between band members without turning any ill will toward yourself? I think what they're saying is, let's pretend we have two people fighting in our band, and we, as maybe the drum major, the head section leader, want to come in and help smooth the waters. What are some, and this is a question that comes up every time, right, everybody? I mean, we always hear this, big deal. So how would you encourage somebody to deal with that problem?
I'm going to tell you, I'll tell you a little story. I did a camp. This was about 10 years ago for a new program. It's a great program now in Georgia, but at the time it was a new school. And the band director asked me to come work with their leadership kit students. And I was telling them about acts of kindness. And I encouraged them to look for ways to encourage each other. A short note, stick it in somebody's instrument cubby, or put it in their, put it on their backpack, or just little things. Look for ways to high five, fist bumps, things that we shouldn't do right now, I guess. But all those things to do to inspire. Well, the band director called me about October, and he said, "Hey, I know you're busy, but one afternoon after you finish band, I'll stay late. Would you drive down to my school? I want to show you something." And I said, "Sure, I'll come down." And I drove down to his school, and he says, "Follow me." And we go into the guard room, and he closes the door. And as he closes the door, I'm thinking, "Oh no, this is really bad. He's going to tell me something he doesn't want anybody to hear." But as he closes the door, I see all these envelopes all over the door. Every guard member had an envelope. The captains had put envelopes up for every guard member. And they had purposely started writing little notes to a few guard members throughout the week. And what happened was the guard members, after they started getting notes, started writing notes to other guard members. And he said, he'd been teaching about 20 years at this point, really fine band director. He said, "Joel, I haven't had one bit of drama with the color guard this year, and I'm convinced that this is the reason." And so I'm going to answer your question. I'm going to say how to prevent those kind of things from happening, as they're going to happen, but from happening as regularly as they might happen, is start doing nice things for people, and other people will join you in doing that. And all of a sudden you're too busy focusing on how to compliment and encourage, and you don't have that drama occur. When it does occur, I think the best way to address it is don't take sides. Don't take sides. Let them talk it out. One of the things we're not really good at is listening. As leaders, most of the time, we've got lots of answers and we want to talk a lot. But I found this out. This is even true as a band director with parents when they would get upset. If I let them just talk, they would talk themselves into realizing that it wasn't a big a problem as they thought it was. And sometimes it's just getting those two people together and getting them to talk to each other and letting them work through the situation, and you being almost a moderator of such, a conciliator of bringing consolation to that problem, instead of saying to one, "You were right and you were wrong." Because probably in almost every case, one of them was right about something and one of them was wrong about something and the other was right about something. And so it balances out. And as they talk about it, they find resolution in just being able to get their frustrations out. Usually it's just frustration.
I want to do one more question and then we're going to wrap this up. This was a really good one that I thought was there, and there have been some really good questions that Gavin and I are going to try and get while this is also being answered. So just hold tight, everybody. How do we lead the people that want to do their own thing and not do things for the benefit of the band? Now, I've seen this manifest a couple of ways. I've seen some, I'm just a player and I'm not here to help anybody get better. I've seen it with the, I'm so good, all of you are beneath me. I've seen it manifest that way. I'm sure you've had some of those, Mr. Denton, as well. How do you, as a peer, can you approach somebody who's in that mindset? And if so, where do we start?
But I was going to say this to you right before we stop this section, but Kalu says, what you do for you is gone when you are gone, but what you do for others remains as your legacy. We all leave a legacy. We talk about it a lot with leadership teams about what's the legacy you're leaving for your band. But understand that every one of you are going to leave a legacy. Bobby mentioned about Katie and his section leader and the bully. Those are legacies that they left for Bobby. You're going to leave a legacy. And so a good way to do that is to sit down with that person and remind them that people are going to remember them, and that because they're so talented, because they have such ability, if they would invest in others, then other people would also get better as well. You know, one of the great things about being a leader is you get the opportunity to peer teach. And peer teach means you have to know what you're doing before you teach other people to do it. But in the process, you refine your skills too. So you actually get better. You know, if I'm the first chair solo trumpet player and the third trumpet player is struggling, if I go down and sit with him and sight read his part and work with him on his part, my sight reading skills get better. My tone probably improves in the lower range of my horn. I develop dexterity that I didn't have in those awkward valve combinations, maybe because I don't play in that range a whole lot. The same thing's true with the clarinet and the flute. You get better when you help other people. So I would talk to them about, first I would acknowledge that they're super talented. And then I would encourage them that they need to share that. And I'll just tell you this quick story. I had this band captain who was first chair all-state trumpet. He was the first freshman to ever play the alma mater solo at University of Tennessee his freshman year. Just amazing trumpet player. And he got elected band captain. I wasn't really sure about it because it came so easy for him. And he was very much about himself. And he came in to me to talk to me, and he said, Mr. Denton, now that I'm band captain, what do I really need to do to help the band and to be a good leader? And I said, you have to think more about how your skills can help others than about how you feel. So that comes so easy for you. He could play something the first time, and the second time it was better than anybody else in the band was ever going to play it. But it wasn't as good as it could be. And so lots of times those people are also, they're into self-gratification. They get satisfied very easily. And it's a good reminder that they understand that by helping others, they get better too. Even when they don't think that they need to get better, they still will.
Well, all of these are so good. And, you know, this guy is the master when it comes to that. He's worked with students all over. And so we can sometimes say, well, in our community, it's this and this. You know what? People are people.
That's right.
There are some differences for sure. I've lived in Massachusetts. I've lived in Chicago. I've lived in North Carolina and now South Carolina. And sure enough, the accents are a little different as I go from one place to the other. However, the hearts are pretty much the same and the motivations are pretty much the same. So this last part is probably more for me than for anybody, because as I told you, I was feeling pretty badly with news that we're getting. And, you know, it's like, gosh, what do we do? What will bands be? What will choirs be? What will orchestras be next year? And I have to tell you, I felt that weight pretty heavily. And as I said, I reached out to Joel this morning and I said, man, if you've got anything, I would appreciate it. And so I think for all of us who need a little bit of extra dose of hope, this is it. And this is from the master right here. So please.
So guys, a couple of years ago, I read this little story, and I've used it a couple of times in leadership or professional development things for band directors or even professionals. But I found it on Monday. It came back to me. I was looking at some notes I had, And I found it. And then Bobby I used it in another session. Bobby asked me this morning, and I thought, this is perfect. So I don't know where you guys are from, but I think it's pretty true everywhere. But there's a kind of a saying in the South that we hear this a lot. But when you go have dinner with people, you'll remember that lots of times you only get one fork, or you may get a salad fork and then your fork for your main meal. And this story is about a young lady who developed cancer, and it was terminal. And she called to her pastor to meet with her about her funeral. And she told him exactly how she wanted the funeral to be. And these are difficult times for us. And I don't think they're terminal, but difficult. And she said, I want this music played, and I want, and I want you to speak. And she went through the funeral, and she said, but I have a really interesting, maybe kind of uncommon request, and I want you to make sure it happens. And she said, I want you to make sure that I am buried with a fork in my right hand. And he said, okay. And Bobby knows I get emotional about things. This story touches me because of where we are right now, and we need hope. So the pastor says, I don't really understand. Can you explain it? She said, well, since I was a little girl and I would go to dinner parties, or I would go to eat dinner with my friends, she said, I have always heard this, but I've never forgotten the first time I heard it. I was a young girl, and I was at a dinner with my parents, and I was sitting by this older lady, and we finished eating the main course, and they were taking up the plates, and the elderly lady leaned over to me and said, keep your fork. Something better is coming. And she said, I want you to make sure I get buried with the fork in my hand, and I want you to tell people what it means. That for me, this is not the end. Something better is coming. And for you guys, I want to tell you, this is an unknown time for us. We're all walking through this. And there are days, I tell my wife, I just don't know. I mean, my calendar was full from March through August, solid, booked almost every week. And everything has been canceled through almost all of June now. And so I'm like, I just don't know. I feel I've got so much I want to do and so much I want to give, and and I'm loving these opportunities to share with like you. But the thing I want you to remember is this is not our final performance. We have better things coming. The fall may not look exactly like it's looked in the past for you, but there are going to be great things for you this year, this school year. You're going to get to experience things. So I want to encourage you, keep your fork. The best is yet to come. I promise.
That's why this guy is one of my heroes. I appreciate so many kind words in the comments section about how much you like these sessions. And I have to admit, I thought today was going to be my last one. But I needed today just as much as you did too. So can I just say this as a personal challenge to all of you? Reach out to your directors this week.
Yes.
We've been talking a lot about student and peer help. I can tell you the old folks are feeling it too. And for you, I know it means X number of years of work may be compromised. Let me tell you, it's even a little bit more when you see maybe your career compromised, or what makes you a person. Like music and music education is so much a part of who I am, that if that gets compromised as badly as it could be, it's going to hurt. But I need people like you, just the kind things that you wrote over there were enough to make me say, okay, I got it. That's what I needed. I needed some in my cup. Thank you, Joel, for always Just one of the best people on the planet, and for always knowing exactly what we need. Thank you, Cecily, for putting this together for us, and all the people at Music for All. Gavin was our Wando drum major representative today. The others, like I said, are doing our own drum major auditions right now. I keep them busy all the time. They're the hardest work in music education, I can tell you. Again, check us out next week. We will do another session at 4 o'clock next week, same time, same place. We really look forward to seeing you there. Go to the education resources at Music for All, sign up there, and you can get email updates about when these will be coming out. So thank you, everyone, so much for a great time. And thank you, Joel, one last time.
Thank you, buddy.
Really appreciate it.
All right.
Thanks, everybody.
See ya.